Alright, welcome to Flipper's Reefing Hacks. Alright, this video is going to be about Kalkwasser. So, what is Kalkwasser? Well, Kalkwasser is nothing more than calcium hydroxide. And why would we use calcium hydroxide in our reef tanks? Well, it is nothing more than pickling lime if you buy it at Walmart. You can find it in the canning section, and that's where I like to buy it. It's a lot cheaper. So, Mrs. Wage's pickling lime is nothing more than 100% food grade calcium hydroxide. Now you can buy it from other places. There's a lot of online stores where you can buy it. It's all the same. Sometimes people like to buy pharma grade, and that's okay too. So what do we do with calcium hydroxide? Well, typically in my case, I really like to use it in my auto top off. This is my top off reservoir for my system. It's 16 gallons. And the way it works is that inside of here I have a small pump, and I have a discharge tube that goes up into my reef sump down here in the basement. I've got a little ball valve that controls the amount of water that it pumps into my reef, and it is controlled by a float switch. And that float switch, whenever it gets low, it kicks on that pump in the reservoir and it pumps water over. So I put calcium hydroxide in my top off. I've been doing this for decades now, since I've been reefing. It was something I learned a long time ago. It was a way for hobbyists back in the day to be able to add calcium to their tanks as the coral started to grow, because water changes typically were not enough to be able to keep up with that demand. But there's other benefits and things that come along with using Kalkwasser in your top off. One in particular that is very useful, that it helps stabilize alkalinity. Once you have dialed it in, the amount of pickling lime or calcium hydroxide to your auto top off water, once you've dialed that in, it'll actually help stabilize your alkalinity. The other thing it can do is it can add calcium to your system. The other benefits that come from it that a lot of hobbyists don't understand or don't really know is that it can also keep dinoflagellates and cyanobacteria at bay. It can also boost your pH in your tank, and that's an added benefit as well. One thing about Kalkwasser and the way that you use it, you have to have a container that has a lid on it. You have to be able to keep the ambient air that's surrounding it away from it. Otherwise, the CO2 that's in the air may affect its potency. In other words, drive the potency down. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. Now, over on Reef to Reef on my build page, Flipper's 125 gallon, I'll post this video along with some information about the use of Kalkwasser. If you ever decide that maybe that might be the way to go by adding it, by all means read the article that I'm going to post and educate yourself a little bit about it. Now, I will say this, Kalkwasser is not always for every tank, and it doesn't really matter a whole lot about the size, but usually typically smaller tanks don't have as much demand, so you might be better off using a two-part solution, or just keeping up water changes might be enough to be able to keep your alkalinity, your calcium, magnesium up to snuff. Oh, one other thing I forgot about too is that with calcium hydroxide use in your top off, it can lower your phosphates. Not as effectively as GFO, but it can kind of keep them down a little bit. It has a tendency to do that. And once again, you can read all about the benefits of using calcium hydroxide in your top-off water on Reef to Reef on my build page, and you can educate yourself, like I said, of all the benefits that come with it. So I'm getting ready to put some water in my top-off. The thing about that is that when you go to dose it, it depends on how many gallons of water that you're going to be adding calcium hydroxide to. So right now I'm roughly about 6 gallons low in my top off, so it's time to fill it up. And I've got a little thing that kind of tells me what to do as far as how much I should add. And I want to be adding roughly 1 teaspoon per gallon. So right now I'm roughly about 6 gallons low. So that means 1/8 of a cup is what I should be adding. And the way I add it is with a measuring cup. I use a measuring cup, okay? And I make sure it's filled to the top of the cup. And when I go to add it to the water, once I got this filled up with RLDI water, then the way I do it is I just sprinkle it on top. Now you could dump it in all at once. If you dump it in all at once, then a lot of that powder's not going to dissolve in the water, and it's going to end up at the bottom of the container. I like just sprinkling it and allowing it to basically kind of settle. As it's dropping, it'll dissolve into the water. You do not want to dose any of the effluent. In other words, you don't want to end up dosing like a slurry. You want just the clear liquid that comes from the reaction of the calcium hydroxide and the water. You want that to be added, and that's all you want. You just want the clear liquid to be added. That's all you need. And once again, like I said, once you're done adding the calcium hydroxide to your top off, you want to make sure that you keep it sealed to keep the air out of it, because of the CO2 issues driving the potency down. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Like I said, over on my build page, I'll be posting this video and a link to a really good article that explains all the benefits and how to use Kalkwasser or calcium hydroxide in your top off. That's pretty much it for this video. See you on Reef to Reef, and fins up.